Hello, welcome to another video from the conscientious biologist, Ben Gallagher. This is the second one in the series on the respiratory system, and I really strongly suggest you've watched Respiratory System 1 prior to this, because this one directly follows on from it and completes your whole learning on the respiratory system topic. This one's on ventilation, which is the mechanism of breathing. So everything you've previously looked at was about the structure of the system and the gas exchange. This is how the breathing occurs. This is suitable for GCSE level. And please do subscribe to my channel if you enjoy these videos and you want to continue to receive information on more of them. So let's focus now on how the air is moved in and out, how you actually breathe, because we've looked at the structure of the respiratory system, we've looked at all the different parts of the lungs, we've looked at how the exchange mechanism occurs in the alveoli, but what we haven't talked about is how that air is pulled in and how it's pushed back out again, and that's the vital part of the system. So we need to focus on the mechanism of breathing, and the correct word for breathing is ventilation. Now please don't confuse respiration with ventilation. For the many years I've been teaching, I find students really struggle with those two and get them confused all the time in exams. But respiration is just a chemical reaction going on in cells. It's glucose and oxygen reacting together to get the energy. Ventilation is breathing. They're totally different things. The only link is that ventilation is providing the oxygen for respiration and getting rid of the carbon dioxide, but they're totally separate things. So let's look at the key things that are involved in breathing. That's the diaphragm muscle that goes across your middle and the intercostal muscles that hold your ribs together. So it's the diaphragm that separates the thorax from the abdomen, and we're really focusing on the thorax. So what I'm going to do on this diagram, I'm just going to add a sort of blue line there that goes around the ribs and the intercostal muscles. If I fade the rest out, we're left with this shape. So you can see that blue line, that's representing my rib cage that goes up around here, totally sectioning off the top and the sides of my thorax, and the diaphragm that goes up and across the middle. So that's what makes the thorax a chamber all in its own right. So the blue lines representing the intercostal muscles in the rib cage, making the sides and the top, and the diaphragm representing the bottom. Now, of course, we need to move air in and out of this, so we also need a tube that comes in at the top, and that should be obvious that that's the trachea. That's the only way in and out of this chamber that is your thorax. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to fade all that out so that I can bring it up a bit smaller to give me a bit more room to fully explain what happens next. So let's bring this up a bit smaller and we'll give it the proper title, which is ventilation. And I've also pulled up this table just to my side here. I have found that this is far and away the most logical and easiest way to understand ventilation, and certainly to get it recorded down for you to revise from and understand. So what I've got in this table, you see those headings there. We've got the ventilation, or the type of ventilation. So are you inhaling, breathing in, or exhaling, breathing out? You need to know what the diaphragm is doing during that time, what the intercostal muscles are doing during that time, what's happening to the volume of the thorax, the size of your chest, if you like, and what's happening to the pressure in your thorax right next to me. So as we go through, I'll reveal what's in each square so we can build this up in a very logical pattern. We'll go through it slowly once, and then I'll whiz through it again a second time to make sure that you've got it. So if we start off with your thorax there, represented by that diagram. First things that you need to do is you need to pull your diaphragm muscle down, and you do that by contracting it. So you imagine your diaphragm when it's relaxed is up like that, pressing up into your lungs. When you contract it, it shortens, so it pulls down and it flattens, okay? Your intercostal muscles need to contract and pull all your ribs up closer together, and that pulls your whole rib cage up and out. So if you watch me as I take a breath, you can see my chest expands, gets much bigger, okay? So with those two now in the table, both your diaphragm and intercostal muscles need to contract to pull your diaphragm down and your rib cage up and out. Now that should be fairly obvious that that's going to make the whole thing grow. So your thorax volume is going to increase, your chest space is getting much bigger. Now think what that's going to do to the pressure, because it's the link between volume and pressure that's the key to understanding this. If you've got, let's say, 100 units of air in your thorax, if you suddenly increase the space for that 100 units of air, they're going to spread out, become less dense. Well, density and pressure are basically the same thing. So if they can spread out more, you're going to decrease the pressure in your thorax. So you've got a low pressure area. Now, if there's a low pressure, That must be relative to something else. So it must be higher pressure air now outside the body than inside the thorax. Well, if you've got high pressure outside and low pressure inside, it's going to move from high to low pressure. So air is going to move into your thorax, which is breathing in. So you breathe in by contracting your diaphragm down, contracting your ribs up and out by pulling the intercostal muscles. That's increasing the volume, which decreases the pressure, so air can rush into that low pressure area. Let's flip that round and look at the reverse. To reverse that, you just need your diaphragm and intercostal muscles to all relax, because then your diaphragm will relax back up, your ribs and your intercostals will relax back down. And of course, what that's going to do is it's going to squash everything, because it's going to decrease the volume again. Decreasing the volume and squashing the air that's in there is going to increase the pressure. So now you've got high pressure inside your thorax. High pressure relative to the low outside is going to push the air back out again. So that's breathing out. You're sucking air in by increasing the volume, decreasing the pressure, so air rushes in. Then by relaxing and squashing in your thorax, you're increasing the pressure to push all the air back out again. Let's run through that again very quickly to make sure you've understood that. So to go through it again, I'll cover up those boxes again so we can whiz through it. But if you've got the diaphragm pulling down, contracting, and you've got the intercostal muscles contracting to pull your ribs up and out, that means the whole thorax is going to expand, meaning the volume is going to increase. That means the pressure is going to decrease, meaning that it's now higher outside than inside, so air is going to move in. If you then relax those things again, it means the diaphragm is going to go back up, the ribs and intercostals are going to go back in, you're squashing from both sides, you're going to decrease the volume, which is going to increase the pressure relative to the outside, so air is going to move back out again. Now that should, hopefully, I haven't gone through it quite twice, be clear. If it's not, just rewind the video a little bit and watch that again. But ventilation comes up a lot in the exams. It's a key concept and it's a multi-step process. So they do like to ask that a lot in the exams. So as I often like to do at the end of my videos, we're going to look at a summary of everything we've looked at, and we're going to focus on the key points. Now there's something I've put repeatedly in lots and lots of my videos, and this is a real exam technique strategy. I need you to start thinking in bullet points, in separate little snippets of information, because it happens so often in the exams that it will be sort of a 6-mark answer, and I'll get a student only giving one key piece of information and going, oh, that's a great piece of information, that will get me 6 marks. No, it won't. 6 marks requires 6 key separate bits of information. So if you can start in your head thinking in terms of bullet points or thinking in terms of separate little bits of information, you're going to do well. So we're going to break the whole of the respiratory system down into multiple points, but we're going to cluster it together in 4 key groups. Okay. So first off, the function of the respiratory system is to filter oxygen out of the air. That's its key function. And get it onto the hemoglobin. So there's another key little bit of information. In red blood cells, again, would you have thought to say that? Would you have just gone, oh, it gets the oxygen to the hemoglobin? Make sure you state where that hemoglobin is. And that's so it can be transported to cells for respiration. So you're linking respiration into it. So those are 4 key points that we can cluster together about the basic purpose of getting oxygen in and to the cells so they can do respiration. Let's look at the next bit. It also absorbs the carbon dioxide from the blood plasma, so I'm getting a key detail in there, and expels it from the body. So those 2, very brief little point, but it's the secondary function, that removal of the carbon dioxide. Next ones, this is done by diffusion. Don't forget to get your keywords in there, they're always worth a mark. That's helped by the enormous surface area, so you're linking up your surface area to volume ratio stuff. What's giving you that surface area? It's the alveoli and the massive blood supply by capillaries. Okay, so that's a really important bit that fully explains how you've got adaptations in the alveoli. So that's another point on its own. Let's look at the last one, which is now the mechanism of breathing, the ventilation. So air is moved in and out of the lungs by ventilation, keyword, caused by volume and pressure changes. You must answer anything about mechanism of breathing in terms of volume and pressure. That's in the thorax, so you're making sure the examiner knows where you're talking about. caused by contractions and relaxation, so you know what muscles can do, of the intercostal muscles and diaphragm. So you've got a lot of information there, and that's your final bunch of points. So I've got 4 separate areas there, but each one broken into a lot of information. That's a lot of key stuff there, and you can read it all in one go. So it's the function of the respiratory system is to filter oxygen out of the air and get it onto the hemoglobin in red blood cells so it can be transported to cells for respiration. It also absorbs the carbon dioxide from the blood plasma and expels it from the body. This is done by diffusion, helped by the enormous surface area provided by the alveoli and the massive blood supply by capillaries. Air is moved in and out of the lungs by ventilation, caused by volume and pressure changes in the thorax, caused by contractions and relaxations of the intercostal muscles and diaphragm. That's a huge and brilliant answer. It's that kind of detail that you should be aiming for in the exam when it comes to respiratory system. Now, having looked at how the oxygen gets into the blood, and we've talked about capillaries, I suggest as your next point, you go on to the circulatory system presentation to look at how that blood is sent around the body to deliver that oxygen to all the cells that need it. As always, if you've enjoyed this, please do subscribe. It's really useful for me to have as many subscriptions as possible. It helps me make these videos. If you particularly like this one and you'd like to see more like it or more linked to this topic, please like it. And if you want to leave a comment with any questions, please do so. Thank you.